All right, so now that we've seen how to define a simple script in TypeScript, the next thing that we're going to see is how to actually create an Express server using TypeScript. So to get started here, what we're going to do is we're going to install the necessary packages. And in addition to the Express package that we're obviously going to need to install to use Express, we're also going to install the types package that goes along with it. And this is pretty similar to what we did before when we installed the types node package that included all of the different TypeScript support for the built-in node packages. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say npm install express, and we'll install that one just as a regular dependency because we need it there. And then as a dev dependency, we're going to say npm install @types/express. And for this one, we'll say save dev because we're only going to need this in development. So that will install the corresponding TypeScript types for the Express package. So now all we have left to do is create a new file in our source directory here, which we'll call server.ts. And now that we have that, let's just create a simple Express server. Now, as a matter of fact, this is going to look very similar to what you might be used to just working with Express servers in JavaScript. But the difference here is that if you hover over any part of it, or if you try and pass an argument that's wrong, TypeScript will catch your mistake for you, which is actually very nice when you start to get into more complex server development. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start off by importing the Express package, of course. So we'll say import Express from Express. And then we'll create a new Express server by saying let app equals Express. And what you can see here is that app is going to have the type of capital E Express, right? This is pretty much the core type of the Express package, is this Express server type. And if you want to, right, if you want to make it extra clear, you can always just say Express after that. All right, so now that we've created that app, let's say app.get, and we're just going to define a simple endpoint. And the first thing that you'll see is that it asks us for a name. And as a matter of fact, this isn't quite the get function that we're going to use here. We're going to use the version of get that takes both a path and a callback function. So what you can actually do in Visual Studio Code, anyway, is you can scroll through the different possible definitions for this get function. And as you can see, they can be pretty lengthy, right? You can see that some of these even have generic types built into them. So what we're going to do here, though, is we're just going to type in a simple path. So we'll say hello, and then we'll add a simple handler. So we'll just say function, and this will take request and response arguments. And then what we'll do is we'll say response.send, and we'll say hello from Express with TypeScript. Okay, so what we just did there might look very un-TypeScripty, but as a matter of fact, everything that we've done here, TypeScript has been able to infer the types from. And you can see this if you hover over anything. And in fact, if you hover over the get method now, you can see that it's picked a specific version of that function that takes these exact arguments here. And you can even hover over the arguments themselves to see what that specific type is. And it's actually a pretty complex type, as you can see. And personally, I've never found these more complex types to be very helpful when I'm just developing a simple Express program. But what they will do is they will make sure that your types are in sync with each other, so to speak, right? They'll make sure that you're not trying to pass a function that takes one type of argument as a callback to a function that's supposed to take another type of argument. So anyway, now that we've defined that simple endpoint, what we're going to do is we're going to tell our server to listen. And what that's going to look like is pretty much just like we would do in normal JavaScript. We're going to say app.listen. And as you can see, this tells us the type that this function is expecting us to pass. And you can scroll through if you want to the one that says port number and callback. That's the specific one we want here. So let's just say port number 8000. And for the callback here, we'll just say function, and we'll say console.log, and we'll print out server is listening on port 8080, or 8000 rather, not 8080. Cool, so this here is a basic Express server in TypeScript, and Again, it might seem a little bit strange that there's no specific types that are named here. So if you really want to, write out the types, feel free to do so. But the idea here is mostly that just as our logic starts to get more complex and as we start to actually define our own types, and if we want to extend the Express server framework in some way, TypeScript will make sure that we're doing so in a type-safe manner. So even though you don't see any types here, TypeScript is still working behind the scenes to make sure we're not doing something wrong. And you can see this, by the way, if you just try and say app.get, and maybe you just pass a function here, right? So you'd say function like so. Well, TypeScript's going to complain about that because there's no overload, right? There's no version of the get function that just takes a function as an argument. And there's lots of other cases like this where TypeScript will actually warn you that you're doing something incorrectly. So anyway, one last thing that I wanted to show you here with regards to using TypeScript with Express servers is how you can actually automatically restart a server each and every time you make a change, right? Because if we have to restart our server every time we make a change to our code, what that's going to entail is we're going to have to recompile all of our TypeScript code, and then we're going to have to run our server again. So an easier way to do this is to use a package called tsnode in conjunction with another package called NodeDaemon. Now, NodeDaemon is a pretty commonly used package in server development because basically all it does is it watches your files for you and automatically restarts your server when those change. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say npm install NodeDaemon, and we're also going to install a package called tsnode. Now, tsnode, you're really going to love this package and you're really going to be tempted to overuse it, I believe. You'll see what I mean in just a second here. But let's just install those packages, and once we've installed those, the first thing that I'm going to show you here is how to use the tsnode package. The idea of this package is that it allows us to run TypeScript files without having to actually compile them. Now, as a matter of fact, it does compile them, but it does that automatically for us behind the scenes. So if we just say npx tsnode and then the path to the file we want to run, right? So if we just say source/server.ts, for example, what we'll see is that that will automatically run that file for us without us having to manually compile it. I told you were going to like this, this package here. So we see that the server is listening on port 8000, and if you want to test this out by going to localhost 8000 on your computer, and actually you need to go to localhost 8000/hello here. There we go. I'm just going to bring that over here, of course. We see that sure enough, it responds by saying hello from Express with TypeScript. Cool. So at this point though, if we make a change to our code, right? If we say something like, let's just say that we add more exclamation points here. Well, that's not going to automatically update our code. We'll actually have to stop this and restart it, much like we would normally have to do with a simple Node server without TypeScript, right? So that's where the NodeDaemon package that we installed along with this comes in, because what NodeDaemon allows us to do is just watch our files and execute some sort of command every time that those files change. So here's what this is going to look like. We're going to say npx NodeDaemon --exec, and we're going to tell it to run the tsnode command with source/server.ts. And we're going to add another flag here that's called watch, and this basically is just where we tell TypeScript which file we want to watch. So in our case, that's going to be source/server.ts. So if we hit enter here, what we're going to see is that sure enough, our server will start listening on port 8000. And if we make a change now, right? So first of all, let's just go back to our browser and hit refresh. Sure enough, we'll see those extra exclamation points appear. But now if we go and make a change, right? So if we say something like hello from Express with TypeScript and NodeDaemon and tsnode, right? If we save that, we're going to see that NodeDaemon will automatically restart our server for us. And if we go back now, we can hit refresh and we'll see that those changes have taken effect. Now, this is a rather lengthy command, of course, so if you want to make it easier for yourself, I highly recommend that you use the same strategy we used in our package.json earlier for our write to file script. What that's going to look like is we're just going to add another script called something like serve, And inside here, we'll just paste that long command that we copied. And in fact, you don't need the npx inside scripts, just because in that case, npm already knows that you want that prefixed there. So anyway, let's try this one more time. We're just going to stop our server, and now we can run npm run serve, and that will take care of typing out that long command for us and running it. So, all right, so anyway, that's how to create a simple Express server using TypeScript. And we've also seen how to use Node daemon and TS Node to make our development even easier. Now, again, this is really just a very basic Express server with TypeScript, but hopefully this gives you a firm foundation to build off of as you go forward learning how to develop Express with TypeScript. So anyway, the next thing that we're going to see is how to use TypeScript with yet another technology.